Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first Into the Chicane Podcast. We are your hosts. I am Tashia, and we have Alicia.
I'm Alicia.
And we are so excited for you guys to be here and listen to us talk about all things F1. So we'll get right into it. Alicia, maybe if you want to kick off a little bit and tell the audience about, who you are, what you love about F1.
Yeah, I would love to. So I think I have a bit of an unconventional entry into F1, which was the F1 movie of all things. And looking back now, I can kind of see how insane that is, just because the movie is not at all really representative of F1, but the visuals and the clips of like the races and the excitement and hype just really got to me. And I've just fallen completely into the world of F1 ever since. So I'm really looking forward to my first full season this year and all of the highs and lows to come, and excited to be jumping on this podcast with you as well.
Yeah, that's so fun. Like, I totally get it. The F1 movie was like, yeah, I mean, there's no real, planned chaos, but sometimes it is a little chaotic. So I'm excited for you to experience your first like full season and be able to take it all in, with all the chaos that will probably ensue this year with all the changes that are
Yes,
coming.
there will be much of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think for me, I got into F1 probably like 2018. So a little bit longer than you, but I really got into it from watching Drive to Survive. It came out, I started watching it, fell in love with Daniel Ricciardo, as I think almost everyone did, and just yeah, completely fell in love with the sport. And wake up on Sunday mornings at like 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whatever it is, to watch every race. So that's a little bit about how I got into the sport, and I'm really excited to go on this with you and for us to, even though we've kind of been F1 fans for different amounts of time, I still feel like I'm new and I'm learning things and stuff. So I'm excited for us to go on this journey together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that gives us a good opportunity to talk about why we wanted to go on this journey together and start this podcast to begin with. And that's really to bring the fun and excitement of F1 to all types of fans, whether you be a new fan, a veteran fan of the sport. I think one of the things that I learned very quickly about F1 is that it can feel a little intimidating to really dive into the world. And we want to take those barriers away from you guys. F1 isn't a gate kept sport, it's for everyone. And we want to make sure that anyone can have fun following F1. And we want to be part of that journey with you guys.
Yeah, exactly. And like, it's like you said, it's such an overwhelming sport sometimes. I feel like there's not like knowing all the different tires. There's so much like physics and engineering and stuff that goes into building the car and understanding different track conditions and how altitudes affect the car and all of that kind of stuff, along with temperatures and all of that, that it's so overwhelming to navigate. And I think it'll be fun for us to go through this together and learn along the way and hopefully kind of help our audience learn a little bit as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
So, as we look forward to the new season starting in just a few days, we have quite a few changes coming our way in the sport, and probably the biggest sweeping round of changes we've had in quite some time with our new regulations. So, for anyone who got really accustomed to DRS, there's no more DRS, which will definitely be a big change for me. I got very used to hearing that over the team radios, and that's actually been replaced by a couple of different modes, I believe. We're going to have the ability for drivers to enter overtake mode if they're within 1 second of the driver ahead of them. And I believe there's also another setting that will give them the ability to control how much power they're giving the car, also within a second range of the driver ahead of them, which should be really interesting.
yeah, I think it'll be really interesting because this year I feel like it's not so much, the skill of the driver. Of course, that's there, but it's also the driver knowing how to manage like the energy output and stuff like that, because the last thing they want to do is kill their battery. So it's kind of this interesting cross, I feel like, that's happening with like Formula E and F1, but now you also have another change that's coming is the smaller cars, right? Like it's kind of this cross between Formula E and F2 and to F1. So it's really going to be interesting to see how how all the different drivers like navigate this and how adaptable they're going to be to these new changes that come in.
Yeah, and you bring up a really interesting point actually about adaptability. I'm very curious to see which drivers are able to adapt quickly to this type of change, given that it is such a big change from the past few years. I almost wonder if our veteran drivers, our Alonso and Hamilton levels of experience, might have a bit of a harder time adapting to this, whereas our rookies and our younger drivers will be able to make that change a little bit quicker. That's kind of what I'm thinking as we head into the new season. We'll see if that's what actually ends up happening, but that should be very interesting to follow because I think the drivers that are able to adapt to this quicker will start to see success a lot faster and will be able to capitalize on opportunities to move up.
So let's move on to
Okay.
Bahrain pre-testing. So it was really interesting this year because there were some very clear winners in pre-testing and some very clear losers in pre-testing this year. Um, I I think Mercedes is going to do really well. I mean I got the car right here to to show my support for Mercedes this year right now, but I think it could be George Russell's year this year. Like I think he has a real shot at winning the drivers championship.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you there. I think coming out of preseason testing, there weren't any major roadblocks that they had. They had a very smooth round of testing. They were hitting the lap times that they wanted. Of course, we don't know until the season starts and things can change, but I think the confident energy that we're getting from the team is really telling. And we all know that Mercedes has really high standards of themselves and they've been waiting a few seasons now to get back to the top. And I think this could be their season that they finally get there again.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of the other I would say clear winners would be I mean McLaren's McLaren, right? Like we know that they're going to have a decent car. They have two strong drivers. You know, they have the last year's drivers championship and constructors championship, right? So they obviously have the most money to to build a new car and just the most resources, right? To have a strong car this year. Um Bahrain pre-testing went pretty well for them for the most part. Um Surprising that they weren't the fastest on the grid. I thought that was really interesting. Um, so maybe could be some problems for them down the road as the other cars adapt maybe a little bit faster. Who knows? But maybe they'll be able to keep it up. Um, but my heart is very excited about Ferrari. I don't know if it's a I hate myself or something like that being a Ferrari fan because every year you just get your hopes up so high. The Ferrari has been moved just to one shelf down, just in case I get to pull it up and keep it back there, depending on how the season goes. Um,
Yeah,
but
it's
I,
hibernating. It's hibernating, waiting for
yeah,
its
yeah,
time.
it's just waiting. It's just waiting for its chance to be front and center. But I'm excited as a Ferrari fan. Like the team looks confident. I haven't seen interviews with Lewis and Charles before looking so confident. They normally just like hate the car and hate everything about the team and they don't this year. And so I keep telling myself not to get my hopes up, but like it's really hard not to.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Tosh, hearing you say that your heart is happy about Ferrari's success makes me a little nervous for you, not gonna lie. But I think you do have reason to be a little hopeful, truthfully. They do look pretty good. Leclerc was setting some really amazing lap times in Bahrain, and I agree that the light is back in Hamilton's eyes, it's back in Leclerc's eyes. We saw them basically completely implode last season too, and so I think coming out of such a disastrous season, I'm sure, I hope the whole team was really, really hungry for change and wanted a completely polar opposite experience to what they had to go through last year. And like, let's face it, these are some of the two most talented drivers on the grid. And for them to be just barely scoring points every race is completely unacceptable and a huge waste of their talent. So Ferrari really needs to get it together this year, and I think they know that. And I hope that we continue to see these good results as the season starts, because these two drivers really deserve it.
Yeah, and so does my heart. Also that. It also really deserves it. I think one of the surprises that I had out of pre-testing was how poor Williams is performing. I want to say that they're looking like one of the losers coming out of pre-testing. I mean, they only got like one of the pre-testing sessions because the car wasn't ready, so they weren't able to really see the car's potential or to be able to figure out what kinks they need to fix going into Australia this weekend. Um, but I was really surprised because just given the high Williams ended on at the end of last season, I kind of expected that momentum to keep going. I really like Carlos and Alex, right? Like, I think they're both phenomenal drivers as well. I have a bit of a soft spot for Williams, having when they had Claire Williams as their principal years ago and, one of the few females in the racing world. I do have a soft spot for that team, and I'm very, very cautious. I don't even know if I should say cautiously optimistic, but I'm like hopeful that similar to last year, they kind of are able to figure it out throughout the year, but I don't think so far it looks like that's going to be a possibility right off the bat.
Yeah, completely agree there. I call Williams my good vibes team just because that's the energy that they give off. The drivers are so lovely and so positive and so supportive of each other and the team goals. And so you see that and you automatically want to root for them, right? So it's hard to see them go through such a slump before the season has even started, given the success of last season. And honestly, the success of last season was a bit of a surprise too. I don't know if anyone really expected Williams to be in contention for podiums, and they got a couple podiums and ended up finishing in fifth, which was pretty amazing. So I think for them now, that's also just raised their bar going into 2026 in terms of what success looks like to them. And I think if they finish anywhere outside of the top five, that's going to feel like a big step backwards. And like you said, it's not looking great for them right now. So they're really going to need to find a way to turn it around if they want to keep building on their amazing momentum that they gained last year. So here's hoping that they can figure it out in a couple races and get back to their success that they were able to achieve last year.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw from last year, Sparkles, the unicorn, and the whole
I
lore
did
around.
not see Sparkles.
Okay. So there's this little girl, and she's like the biggest Carlos Sainz fan. And like sent this video to Carlos about just like how much she loves him and how she would like him to have a unicorn sticker on his helmet. So I guess the Williams team, whatever, reached out to her, coordinated this. And so she like basically like drew this sticker for Carlos. I don't know if she drew it or they decided something based off of her like unicorn teddy bear whose name is Sparkles. And Carlos put it on his helmet, and that was his first podium of the year. Um, so Sparkles, I think, is a good luck charm for Williams. And they brought the little girl in to come and meet the team, and Carlos met Sparkles in real life. So I'm gonna, just be, again, maybe optimistic on this one and hope that Sparkles is gonna bring them some good luck, because they actually got to meet Sparkles this time around.
Yes. Yes, we got to get Sparkles in that garage ASAP.
Yeah, I don't
Sparkles
know.
will make it all happen for them.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be on Carlos's helmet again, but like it really should be. Like it just has to like a standing like image on his helmet from now on, I think.
Yeah. If anyone can get them through, it's Sparkles. I'm a believer now. Yes.
I
Love
think
that. That's so sweet.
it's cool, right? It's such a like I saw that, I thought that was so sweet. And
Yeah.
I think VCarb and Williams tend to have like the best social media. Their stuff has been so cool to watch, and whoever's running their social media needs a raise.
Yeah. Hard agree. They're killing it right now. They're putting all the other teams to shame.
100%. One of the things I found interesting, and like maybe I just haven't read it properly, but I haven't heard a lot coming out from Red Bull around like Bahrain. But like,
Yeah, they've been quiet. They've been really quiet. And I wonder, I mean, far be it from me to give Red Bull any kind of credit ever. But I wonder if they're trying to protect Isaac a little bit. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
intentional, but I feel like the team has been through a lot in the last year, and it might be a little much for him to be feeling all this pressure, which I'm sure the team is not easing any pressure. But I wonder if the calmness and the quietness is intentional to give him a bit of a chance to try to succeed here in the second seat.
Yeah, maybe. I know he crashed out kind of in his first lap, right, of pre-testing, similar to what Gasly did, I think, when he was a second driver of Red Bull, and
Yeah.
I remember reading, he was like, I went on to, like, Twitter or X or whatever afterwards and just saw what everybody was saying and hoping I'm not gonna have the same fate as Gasly. Um, so I agree with you. I don't think that pressure on Isaac is gonna, you know, let up anytime soon. That seat, I just oh god, when he signed for that seat, I was like, "No. No, my precious." Like, don't do it, 'cause
Yes.
I loved he's my favorite
I
rookie
felt the
last year.
same.
Like, I loved him. And I just don't want him to be in that seat because the second seed Red Bull curse is so real. Like, it's crazy how nobody can
Yes.
last in that
Yes.
seat. So maybe that's a little bit of it. I'm really curious, like, Max has been putting up some good, like, times, right, in the cars, so are they just, like, being tight-lipped so people don't necessarily know what's going on with the car, and, like, is Max a I'm never gonna count Max out, right, of being drivers' champion, and so are they just, holding their cards close to their chest here before they they reveal them in Australia? I don't know.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point too, because if you look at last year, that's what ended up helping them a lot, I think, was being the team that felt like they were out of it. And then all of a sudden, they just kept winning and winning and winning. And they had this nothing to lose mentality, which almost won them a driver's championship. So I wonder if they saw how the team was able to rally and they're trying to like take a new approach this year in terms of we are, carving our own path. We don't listen to the noise around us. We don't contribute to the noise and we're just going to drive fast and see what happens.
Yeah, hope I mean, let's see. I hope for Isaac's sake that's the case, and he's going to do well in that seat. Um, but we'll find out. Um, I think some of the other really interesting winners out of this one, um, Haas, which is a name that I haven't really thought of as doing well in a really long time. Um, the Haas team seemed to be doing pretty okay.
Yeah, and shockingly too. I mean, Haas is the team that I always forget about in Formula 1. If you ask me to list all the teams, Haas is the last one I mention every time because I forget that they exist. And yet this year they could be the best of the rest, which seems unfathomable given how much they've been through in the last 4 to 5 years, but they look to be in a good position and if William falters, I think Haas could be right there to capitalize and get that top 5 finish.
Yeah, 100%, and I'd love to see that for, Esteban and Ollie, who was also, I think Ollie and Isaac. I mean, all the rookies. I had a soft spot for all the rookies last year, but those two in particular, I'm excited to see them kind of come to form a little bit. It is gonna be new this year with the car and stuff, so it's not gonna be, take everything you learned last year and apply it into this year, but I think hopefully they will have learned how to handle the pressure of F1 and the expectations. But I'm excited to see Ollie in the Haas this year, and hopefully he has a car that'll cooperate with him.
Yeah, agreed. I would love to see Ollie get his first podium finish this year. I think that's very possible, and he definitely has the talent to back that up.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, I mean, the clear loser that pops out in my head is Aston Martin this year, which has just been absolutely disastrous. Um, I don't know what's going on because they have Adrian Newey, and, like, as soon as they signed Adrian Newey, I was like, "They're gonna be amazing." Like, he designed he's given Max all of his winning cars, like, how could this car be terrible? Um, but it's apparently terrible, and I don't understand.
Yeah, and what's so shocking to me is that not only is the car supposedly terrible, it also seems to be undrivable, like literally undrivable, to the point that the drivers are worried about getting permanent nerve damage in their hands, which, I'm a newer fan. I've never heard of any driver saying anything like that to the media publicly. So I'm quite shocked at the position that they're in. And like you said, Tosh, like they have such amazing talent. They have so much money too behind that team. And I'm surprised that given all of those resources and all of the talent that they have, they're finding themselves in this position where they're not even going to be able to get more than 15 to 25 laps out of the car. That's just shocking to me, truthfully.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember where they finished last season, but like it was definitely not at the bottom. So to
Yeah.
fall from the graces that much, to be at a point where we're like, forget scoring points. We don't even think we're going to be able to finish a race. Like that's crazy. And I mean, again, part of me is maybe like, like the Slytherin sneaks out sometimes of like, are they just like trying to like red herring this one? Like, is Adrian Newey just like putting all of this stuff out there and like getting all this chatter going about how terrible the car is, and then the car is like actually not terrible? I mean, maybe, but everything we've seen doesn't seem to be supporting that at all. So I don't know. This one's truly baffled me because I don't understand how Aston Martin is this trash.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, we know that they have a little bit of that like evil energy about them, that Slytherin energy about them. So I wouldn't put it past them to be playing some games with the public. But I think when you have a driver with as much experience as Fernando Alonso saying that he won't drive the car for more than 25 laps, like that's got to be an indication that things are not going well at all. And I wonder if we're going to see the team just kind of descend into chaos a little bit, where like I don't know, I don't really know how you come back from something like this if the car just straight up can't be driven at all.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. We'll find out. We'll see what happens this weekend. Um and maybe throughout the year they figure out what's going on and are able to fix it, but it's not looking promising right now. So Alicia, why
Yes.
don't you tell us what is your hot take for the season?
Yeah, I would love to get into that. So, my hot take for the season, actually, in contrast to your optimism for Ferrari, I actually think that Ferrari is going to continue being Ferrari and do even worse than they did this past season. And I think that Leclerc is finally going to reach his wall and say that enough is enough. I'm expecting him to sign with a new team for next season, and I'm sure we'll hear about that sometime after the summer break. I just think that at this point in his career, he's given this team as much as he can, and in my opinion, given them a few extra years than he could have. And let's get him a championship. I need to see my guy on the top of the podium hoisting his trophy into the air. And I just don't think Ferrari is going to get the job done. So I hope that we see Leclerc and Ferrari depart ways finally.
I'm gonna agree with I don't think Leclerc is gonna win a championship with Ferrari. Like I don't see it happening. But I also feel like Leclerc is in this like similar to to me and being a fan of Ferrari. He's like in this toxic relationship with Ferrari where like I just don't know if he's gonna leave. I just don't see him doing that, to be honest. But I think if he wants to
It's
win a
possible. I
championship,
mean, he looks a little
yeah,
comfortable.
yeah,
Yeah.
he does. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
We'll have to
That's a
see.
hot take.
Yeah. We'll see what
So
happens, but I'll be following that one closely.
okay, so I have two hot takes for this season. One probably a lot less likely than the other one. Um, but my first hot take is I think Arvid Lindblad is going to be your standout this season. I think he's a rookie, obviously. It's his first year racing in F1. So I think it's going to take him a little bit of time to get used to it, but with the new regulations and stuff, obviously we have two kind of major ones of the cars are smaller. They're a lot more similar to F2 cars. than they have been to F1 cars. I think he's going to be able to adapt a lot easier to the F2 cars, or to the F1 cars this year, being as similar as they are to F2 cars. And the other one is all about energy management. And one of Arvid's coaches, whose name I can't remember because I don't follow Formula E, but he was a Formula E champion. So he obviously understands energy, like how to work energy in the car and stuff like that, and how to, when to utilize it, when to conserve it and stuff. So I think Arvid's going to have a bit of an upper hand there than I think the other drivers will. I think it also is to his benefit this year. Like you were talking a little bit about like who's going to be more adaptable this year and how it might be a little bit more of a challenge for our older drivers who've been around, the veterans who've been around for so many years. Arvid hasn't driven an F1 car, right? Like he doesn't have any experience with that, so he doesn't really have to unlearn any of that. So I think he's going to be a standout this year. And my other hot take, which is probably not going to happen, but given how terrible, just like how garbage Aston Martin is this year, I think Lawrence Stroll, being, the smart businessman he is going to get to the point where he is going to realize he has a losing car and a losing team, and he's going to cut his losses. And by doing that, I think it may be Lance Stroll's last season if that happens. So is it going to happen? I don't know. But I just don't really see Daddy Dearest hanging on for much longer on this one.
Wow, those are some really interesting takes, actually. I think you've honestly really got a good case for Arvid's success in Formula One. Let's start there, though, because I think you make a great point that he's young, he's a rookie in F1, but he also has that really relevant experience from the rest of his racing career that's going to be very key in adapting to this new car and the new regulations. And he's really the only one that's been operating in this way recently, at least, because much of the other grid, like the rest of the grid, has all been, on their regular DRS train for the past few years. So I think that's a great case that you make, and I would honestly love that to be true, because it's time we see a rookie just jump right in and take the sport by the reins. So that would be super exciting. I think your take on Aston Martin is pretty interesting as well. And you do make a pretty good case for the fact that at the end of the day, yes, this is a sport, but it's also a business. And I really don't know how much money is to be made when every year you're facing some sort of delay in reaching your goal in the sport, which is to have a championship winning team. And I know that Aston Martin had plans to start building and be good later. And like we're at later now, right? Like it's time to be great. And if the car is not drivable, I don't see how that's going to happen. And yeah, as for Lance, I wish the guy all the success in the world, but I don't see another team being willing to take a chance on him. Let's face it, his driver IQ leaves something to be desired. And I personally think he needed a bit of nepotism to get to this stage in his career. So without that, yeah, he might be out of luck.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, right? And like you said, like it is a business, right? All these teams are businesses. And when I don't know how much they dropped on Adrian Newey, but it's got to have been a pretty penny to convince Adrian to leave Red Bull and move over to Aston. When you've invested that kind of a money and you're not seeing the return on it. If anything, it's, completely gone out the door, and you're now most likely going to be last place. I just don't see Lawrence Stroll being like, yeah, let's keep doing this. Let's keep putting more money in, just so Lance can keep driving.
So in the past week, we got the newest season of Drive to Survive. So this is season 8 now of the show. And it was a bit of an interesting one. Tosh, what were your thoughts? Let's start with your thoughts. What did you think of the season?
Okay. I I didn't like this season, to be honest with you. I felt like it just, I don't know, in the past season, like you've obviously had like Christian Horner, there is kind of the bad guy and like Max and stuff, right? You've had your villains and the storyline's been pretty clear. And this year with losing Christian, Max was, I feel like at the end it got exciting with and him calling himself Chucky and coming back, and it's just kind of the villain that just keeps showing up, knocking at Lando's door there. Other than that, I just found the season like leaving a lot to be desired. It felt a little too overscripted for my liking, like being like, George, take your girlfriend on a yacht and like talk about these things while we record. It just felt very scripted to me this year. I understand, right? It's a Netflix show. It's going to be a bit scripted. I know that they have to like let the teams know in advance, like at the beginning of the year, like what races they're going to be filming with what teams. But I think with that, a bit of a disservice is done because you miss a lot of kind of the exciting stuff that happens that season, right? We like really missed the downfall of Ferrari for the most part, right? Ferrari was fighting for second spot in constructors, with Mercedes and just like plummeted at some point, right? Like you missed a lot of that. I don't think they like even showed Ollie Behrman like once, if I'm not mistaken, in the entire season, right? So it's just you missed out on, and same with Esteban. Like you didn't see the Haas team at all in the entire season. Um, so I don't know. I personally didn't enjoy it. But what about you, Alicia?
Yeah, I would agree. It wasn't my favorite season. I think there were some moments that were enjoyable and some storylines that they were able to tell and give their due, but for the most part, I would agree that it felt a little too scripted and a little bit too constructed, and we missed a lot of really important moments of the season. Like you mentioned, Ferrari's slipping down from second to fourth in constructors, that was a huge part of the season. Just, failure after failure for Ferrari, and it was basically completely glossed over. And at the same time, I don't think they spent really any time at all talking about some of the problems that McLaren was having in papaya rules, specifically when Oscar, from leading the fight for the driver's title, suddenly slipped down to second. And we know after watching all of the 2025 season that there were some team dynamics that played a part in that. And I was waiting for that to be brought up because there were some pretty key races where McLaren made some very questionable decisions, or at least decisions that had a lot of opinions, and that wasn't brought up at all. So I found that to be a bit of a miss. You also mentioned the lack of Haas, which I also found surprising. I think of all the teams, it might have been Haas and Aston Martin maybe that got the least amount of coverage or attention at all. We didn't really hear from either team's drivers up until the last episode when Lance gave his 2 cents about who was going to win the drivers' championship. So thanks, Lance. Other than that, yeah, didn't hear much from him and heard way too much from our buddy Zach Brown. So felt like a little bit of an uneven season and not really representative of the way that the sport actually went last year, which was a bit disappointing.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I also agree on the way too much of Zach Brown. It was a lot of Zach Brown in in this season. Also, I found it really interesting how like Zach just has to like show off his like other professional sport friends all the time to be like, look who I hang out with,
Oh
look
my
who are my
God,
friends.
yeah.
And it's just what are you doing, man? We get it. You have
Yeah, felt
popular
a
friends.
little bit indulgent. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agreed. I'm no Christian Horner fan, but I felt like the dynamic between Christian Horner and Zach Brown really helped make Zach a little bit more tolerable. And without Horner to kind of offset him, it was just too much. And Christian's right, he is really annoying.
100%. I could not agree. Only thing I will probably agree with Christian Horner with is that
100%.
I did
Yeah.
find the George Kimmy dynamic to be like really endearing, of this like almost this like big brother figure, and just like taking Kimmy under his
Yes.
wing. Like I think it was was it the first episode? I'm pretty sure I was, like, hollering laughing of just, like, the 2 of them, like, taking the tube together to get to the O2 and stuff, and, like, George just, like, truly basically just, like, holding his hand to get there and showing him how to use the train and stuff like that. I thought that was very endearing and pretty funny. I was like, "When did George get funny?" That
Yes.
wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, completely agreed. I think the rookies were honestly one of the best parts of Drive to Survive this season. I think we saw another quick clip of Kimmy complaining about all of the media responsibilities he had, and he was talking to Lewis on the side of a press day, saying like, "Oh, I have this many media days to do," and you see Lewis just nodding, like, "Yeah, that's a lot, man. I'm sorry." So I really enjoyed those moments, and I'm just seeing the way that these young drivers are being supported or not supported in some cases by their teams and the drivers around them. And that was a really interesting storyline to follow, and there were some nice moments that we got there for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the rookies just made last season. Like, I'm really gonna miss having
Totally.
so many rookies around, this year because it was just fun and refreshing and it just made the sport a lot more interesting again. So I completely agree. The rookie storyline was great. I never liked Christian Horner, and somehow this season made me, like, dislike him even more, just, like, with the amount of pressure he put on those rookies, and like, it's just crazy, right? Like, creating such a toxic environment is not great, right? And even with Alpine and Fabio, which I have also have many actually, I'll take that one back. I think I may dislike Flavio more than I dislike Christian Horner. Um, but just like you just see the difference, right? In having such a toxic culture versus the culture at stake and Mercedes that at least, we saw on screen of like how they, kind of protected these rookies and like gave them a pat on the back and said it's gonna be okay versus like you need to perform now. And if you don't perform in like 2 races, we're kicking you out, right? Like it's crazy. I think Doohan, right? Jack Doohan
Yeah,
also, like,
Jack Doohan. Yeah.
getting threats, and I was like, "That's absolutely crazy." Like, I understand being passionate about a sport and stuff, but, like, they're kids, right? Like, they're so young. They've never had to, yes, you have to deal with different types of pressure and stuff like that, but that just takes a insane toll on your mental health, and I felt so bad for them, um, like, just watching that.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's so just inappropriate, I feel, to take things that far. I mean, yes, this is a sport. We have expectations of these drivers and these teams, but they are people at the end of the day. And I think there are certain things that are below the belt and cross the line, and nobody should be getting death threats for their performance in a sport, like point blank, period. And you also bring up a great point about how we see that culture really makes or breaks a like a rookie's performance on a team. And we saw that Kimmy was surrounded by a lot of support, encouragement, and that resulted in a great season for him. He got his first 2 podiums ever of his career. And then we look at someone like Liam Lawson, who was given such unrealistic expectations to meet. And he had, what, 2 races to meet them. And then he was dismissed back to his junior team, which I found pretty brutal to relive and really made me feel bad for him. And then, yeah, we flip over to Alpine and they scraped together, what, like 30 points or something really low all season. And neither Duhan or Colapinto scored a single point last season. And I think that's really telling of how their experience was with the team and maybe speaks to some greater problems there. So that was some really interesting contrast that we saw between all of the different experiences that the rookies had.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it made my heart break for some of them, right? Like it's a really shitty situation to be in, realistically. Um, but it was nice to see like I know with like Liam, there's kind of that scene where they're asking him about like if he had had a chance to chat with Max, and I think Max like talked to him and wasn't supportive of that decision and stuff like that. And was like he got dealt an unfair hand. So I think it was nice that a lot of the rookies did also have like some of the veteran drivers to be there for them. They didn't show it in Drive to Survive, but it's like just ingrained in my brain of when Isaac crashed out in the formation lap in Australia, um, which was obviously awful. And so they showed that part, but like right after, like he's a mess and he's like crying. Like it's obviously it's his first Formula One race, right? He's worked so hard to get there, and he doesn't even get to race because he crashes out in the formation lap. And Lewis Hamilton's dad comes over and just grabs him and like hugs him and holds him and is just like telling him words of encouragement and stuff. And like I think that makes such a big difference for them. And again, another, I think really pivotal moment in Isaac's life that didn't get captured on the show. So a lot of missing pieces, I would say, from the actual season.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great moment as well. I'm glad you brought that one up. It was really nice to see that, and I wish we had gotten a bit more insight into that moment on the show.
Okay, so one of my favorite things that I'm seeing right now with F1, particularly with Lindblad, is F1 historically has been a very white sport. Right? You kind of have Lewis Hamilton as your one driver of diversity. Last year we got Isaac, who's North African, if I'm not mistaken. So you have him. Um, but we haven't really been shown a lot of culture in F1. And with Lindblad this year, I think it's been really cool to see VCarb embracing his Indian heritage. So last week they have some like motor jam that Red Bull does in India. It's the second year they've done it. This year they took out one of the VCarb cars and Arvid was there and driving. And so it's really cool to see that. But I think the coolest part was like them showing Arvid with his family. And like there's a video that I saw that were like they were doing like a puja to the car and like blessing the car and like breaking the coconut and stuff. And like it didn't feel performative. Like it actually felt really cool to see a different culture in F1, and a little bit more diversity. And I don't know if the whole sport is going to embrace the diversity, but at least to see VCarb embracing a bit of diversity was really heartwarming for me to see.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I had not really anticipated that VCarb would be highlighting his culture at all and make that an element of their socials and how they introduce Arvid to the public. But I was really happy to see that. And even better was when I went into the comments and saw that there was a lot of support from the fans as well. There was a few comments I saw that said something to the likes of never thought I'd see a Nani in F1 because his grandparents were in a couple videos. It was just so heartwarming to see, like, first of all of the support that his family has given him, but then also how proud he must be to be repping his culture like that on such a large stage. So I think it's a really nice step for F1 to be taking. And you're right, like it didn't feel performative at all. It felt really genuine and really intentional and something that Arvid also wanted to be shared, which was really nice.
Yeah, I know we were chatting a little bit offline about how we feel like VCarb's like social team is just like phenomenal, and their just social media game is fantastic. I think it's kind of been the last 2 years that they've just done a really solid job on their socials. But this year, it's felt so natural to be highlighting this driver who has a diverse background, who's very proud of that diverse background, and to even like you said, right, to have his like grandparents, like his nani and nana involved, and like it was so sweet and so heartwarming, and I think appeals to a bit of a broader demographic than traditional F1 has, which I think is great, right? We had in India um Grand Prix when Race Force, right? Race Force was owned by an Indian. Um, but then obviously everything happened with him, and Lawrence Stroll ended up buying the team out and stuff like that. Um, but we haven't had, a Grand Prix in India. I think that country and that side of the world kind of has been overlooked in the world of F1. So could this maybe be a potential expansion into India and to bring back the India Grand Prix? Who knows, maybe. But I think doing something like this in India has shown the owners in F1 and stuff like that that there is a large, fan base in India who are really thirsty for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, clearly there's a lot that goes on in terms of determining the race calendar and where it makes sense to add new races and take away old races. So we'll see if that's in the cards. But I think you bring up a great point that that's a bit of an untapped market right now. We know that obviously that would expose the sport to a whole bunch more people. There's a lot of potential for F1 to really take off in India if we bring a Grand Prix back to India. And I think also it does a lot for representation as well. I think it's hard to envision yourself being involved in anything where you don't see anyone that looks like you. And, not just talking about drivers, but obviously we know there's a whole team behind these drivers that make or break them. And I think if you're a young kid and you're seeing a Grand Prix in your home country and you find that interesting and exciting, that also opens up possibilities for what you could do with your life as well, which is, I think, not something that should be discounted. And I think, given how US heavy Formula One has gotten, it would be nice to see some of those races, maybe not all of them, but I can think of a couple US races that I would like to see taken out of the US and maybe shifted elsewhere in the world, at least just for a trial period, if nothing else. And I think India would be a really interesting candidate to host a GP.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's, you've had a race there, but like you've had a track there before. You can see the audience is there, right, for it. And I think so the other place that I know that Lewis Hamilton's been a big advocate for is bringing a race back to Africa. Because it's the only continent outside of Antarctica. It's the only continent that doesn't have a race. So, similar to like to your point there of like if there are races there, it opens up people's eyes and maybe brings more diversity into the sport. I think it, whether it's India or you bring something in Africa or both, I think it's important to have races in different countries, continents for that exposure.
Yeah, completely agree. And I would love to see that over the next few years for sure.
Well, all right, Alicia, let's hear your Australia Grand Prix predictions for the weekend.
Yes. So the day that we're recording this, I think qualifying is in 2 days from now, or just practice. Practice is in 2 days from now. So we'll see how feasible these predictions end up being. But given that we're headed to Australia and we have a very talented Australian driver on the grid in Oscar Piastri, who I think might be feeling like he left a little bit on the track last year. I'm predicting that this is his race to lose. I would really love to see him go out and win his home Grand Prix. I think that would do a lot for him personally. Obviously, I'm sure that's a goal that he already had, regardless of how last season ended up turning out for him. But I think given that he has a little bit of unfinished business, winning in Australia would just set him on a great path forward to hopefully winning the title this year. I'm really rooting for him to have a huge comeback.
I would love to see that, and I would love for the Australia Grand Prix curse to finally be broken and to have an Australian winning the Grand Prix. Yeah, I think that would be amazing for Oscar to win. My predictions, I would love for Oscar to win. That'd be great. Um, I think that curse is there. So we'll see if he can overcome it. But I think George Russell is going to come out on top. I think I think it's going to be a pretty tight fight between George and Max. Um, I don't really, I don't know, and I might bite my words on this one later in the season, but I don't really see Lando being as strong of a player as he was as last year. So I think it's going to be between George and Max, and I think in Australia, George is going to come out swinging to show everyone he's not messing around and he's here to win this time. Um, so that's what I think's going to happen.
Yeah, I honestly think that's pretty plausible. I think that all of Mercedes, but especially George, is pretty hungry for some dominance and to win a lot of podiums and ultimately win it all this year. So I think that that could definitely start as early as Australia. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him up there for sure. And I would agree with you that um, Lando maybe won't be as much of a factor this year. We know that he was able to win last year, and perhaps that's taken a little bit of the pressure off, and he will kind of feel a little bit more comfortable not being in the top this year. Again, I might eat my words on that as well. We'll see. But I could definitely see your prediction playing out where we just start George Russell dominance from the very beginning.
We'll find out this weekend.
Yeah, let's see. Should be exciting. All right. So that brings us to the very end of the first episode of the Into the Chicane podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. And we're really excited to bring you more interesting F1 content this season. If you enjoyed the podcast, please rate it on the podcast listening platform of your choice. And we'll be back soon with another episode. Bye.
Bye.